My name is Brian. This is Bare Metal, and this is Raw Metal. For today's video, I wanted to talk about this game and how, among other things, it has mastered the art of the genre switch-up. You've probably heard me use the phrase "-like" a couple of times in my past videos, and a lot of devs out there wear their influences on their sleeves, they name drop, and don't pretend to be anything other than more of the same. And most of the time that's okay, because hell, at least they're being honest about it. Other developers want to make something that is not just boundary breaking, but genre defining. And it can be hard to do that when it seems like everything has been done before. In either case, it's no secret that the reason everyone wants to make the next Hades, Overwatch, or Bloodborne is because people found those things fun, addictive, or accessible. And they want to recreate or at least capitalize on how those games make people feel. And so, copycat oversaturation becomes the curse of every successful project. And before you know it, your favorite game has become a Steam store category of its own. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who is getting a wee bit goddamn tired of being marketed roguelite, Soulsborne, Honkshin, Impact, Mobavanias. Like, we get it. You don't have to keep trying to prove that you can improve somehow upon the same old formula. Now, I'm not saying this to discourage anyone from pursuing their dream of making the perfect roguelite, Soulsborne, Honkshin, Impact, Mobavania, but too much of a good thing ultimately always becomes a bad thing. And frankly, I get a little giddy when I find a project that just feels like it's doing its own thing, living its best life, just vibing.
Ba-doo, ba-doo, bap. Ba-da, da, doo, da. Da, 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 da.
And those are the ones I'll go out of my way to experience. Still, I think there's something to be said for games that can gracefully borrow certain technical principles that have been established by predecessors, and reuse them in unique or innovative ways. The games that master this, I think, don't settle for one label. They switch between established genres on the fly without you even noticing. They don't invent, but they innovate, and when done skillfully, that can be just as good. This is only one of the reasons I love Raw Metal, so while I'll start with my favorite parts of the game in a technical sense, I'm also going to yap relentlessly about the story, the atmosphere, and how this game seems to be a love letter to its many influences. Now, I'm a very simple man. I praise the sun. I make your mom jokes. I bask in the glory of running bits, and I will admit that my tastes are fairly uncomplicated as well. I have things that I'm drawn to aesthetically. Anything with a mechanical, industrial, or post-industrial vibe is something I can usually get into pretty easily. From music to television,
ooh, that stuff right in front of us.
to video games, there's just something about the idea of big machines, cold hard steel, dirt, and rust that just really gets me all jacked up. Don't even get me started on mechs, because once I get started on a mech, I don't stop. So of course, when I came across a game literally called Raw Metal on Steam, where you sneak through a mining site and fist fight teched up guards, you could say that my fancy had been tickled. It had a pretty cool look, and that was enough for me, but I didn't realize when I purchased it just what a special little gem I'd acquired. Raw Metal is a 2024 release developed by Team Crucible, and it seems to be their first commercial title. Rather than trying to pull its identity from any one specific game that came before it, it mixes and mashes up a lot of interesting tropes and mechanics from a number of genres. Here's a quick rundown of the story, which I'll return to at length later. You play a scavenger on the planet of Charybdis in search of gear and supplies in the depths of Charybdis 6. A high-security facility run by an organization known as Orpheus Technologies. Your first resort to getting inside and collecting fancy gear and gadgets will be MGS2 style stealth. And stealth in this game is nothing to balk at. It's a fairly sophisticated system considering how many others exist in tandem with it. The enemy's ability to detect you is helped or hampered by the lighting in each level. You're encouraged to stay within the shadows to avoid being spotted. There's also a noise mechanic, so wearing broken armor, walking upright, or treading through water can also get you busted by any guards close enough to hear you. If you've played a Kojima or Bethesda game in the last 10 years, maybe even 20 years, these mechanics won't seem revolutionary to you. But I think there's another game that came out recently that has perfected the stealth system that I'm talking about here. In fact, it's the only game nominated at the 2023 Game Awards for the stealth gameplay category, and Raw Metal borrows a lot from it. And that game is the hip and happening Sneak King for Xbox 360. Sneak King for Xbox 360. By keeping track of their routines and movements, you can either let guards come to you, or leap from the shadows to take them down once their backs are turned. Skulking through these dense underground environments, you'll find an array of non-lethal tools that can help you remain undetected. Noisemakers that lure enemies to wherever they land. Electromagnets that grab onto them like bear traps. And tear modules, teleportation grenades that send enemies to random spots on the map. You also have a long-range taser which serves a dual purpose, stunning enemies and disabling lamps and cameras to give you more shadow to stalk through. There's nothing stopping you from sneaking through each level to grab all of the keycards and making your way down to the boss fight in each layer without unnecessary combat. But I've got to be honest with you, the combat in this game is just as fun as the stealth. I personally find it more fun than the stealth, so I've never bothered sticking to just sneaking. If you can do that, more power to you. So now let's talk about what makes getting found in this game so fun. If you're ever caught, the doors to whatever room you're in slam shut, and you're put in isolation with however many enemies are nearby. The camera zooms in, and you get what is effectively a fighting game, complete with combos, dodges, and parries. You have a light punch with X and a light kick with Y on Xbox controller or Steam Deck layout. Holding these buttons down for about half a second will convert these into heavy attacks. For most fights in the game, your ability to perform combos will be the most important factor for survival, and timing is key to making the most of all of these abilities. Depending on the situation, you may find that you'll have to switch up your approach. Every enemy effectively has 4 stats that matter, a couple of which are hidden beneath the surface of the game. The first is their health. You hit an enemy, they take damage, it goes down. Nothing too revolutionary. But once their HP is depleted, you can knock them out with a heart attack. If you fail to be aggressive enough, their health can actually start to regenerate. In that way, you can think of health less in the traditional limited resource sense and more as a kind of stamina meter. The second stat that matters is the enemy's maximum health, and this is probably closer to HP in the typical sense. It's effectively their true health. It doesn't come back, and you can break it down through heavy attacks and juggles. Once this hits 0, they're down for the count. Keeping enemies at bay and putting out permanent damage with hard hits will make fighting multiple foes at once more manageable. The third stat is enemy aggression. If you spam moves or hit them while they're blocking, they won't like that. They'll start to get miffed. You start to make their ass itch. And this rage-inducing itch of the ass is almost an invisible stat, but enemies do receive an indicator above their head when they've had enough of your nonsense. In addition to just being a hilarious feature to include in a game, this also has the added benefit of allowing you to bait them into doing certain moves that are more predictable and easier to parry. And fun fact, if your character wears shutter shades like a douchebag, enemies will get this faster. The last stat that matters, if you can call it that, is enemy awareness. The darkness is always your friend in this game, even in combat situations. Slipping into the shadows in the middle of a fight will give you an advantage and make enemies whiff attacks or lose track of you entirely. And you'll need as many advantages as you can get. In most fights, you'll only be able to take up to 3 hits. If you have lightweight gear equipped, this can be as few as 1. You can also gain temporary points of armor if your gear is good enough, but it doesn't regenerate at any point like your health does. So no matter what, you're forced to play smart and learn how to not get hit.
That's what this sack of wrenches is for. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
The last part of this I'll mention is that there is a combat scoring system in the game, but it's fairly surface level and it doesn't really mean anything outside of the context of the fight you're in. Depending on how well you perform by mixing up your moves and doing damage to the opposition, knocking out the opponent will give you one of 6 ranks. None, Nice, Sick, Deadly, Visceral, and Raw. Wearing certain lucky gear while racking up these combos will earn you slightly better loot, as well as access to the Raw Plus and Raw Plus Plus ratings, which feels like a missed opportunity to have a medal ranking. But maybe Team Crucible will see this and feel inspired to put one in. Fundamentally, this point system doesn't really do anything. It shouldn't impact your experience too much. It's just more atmosphere. Now keep in mind, all of what I just mentioned is one part of the game. In addition to the beat-em-up fighting game aspect, there's also a roguelite dungeon crawling element to this, which allows you to find and retrieve dozens of armor pieces like the mask and glasses I mentioned before. Collecting these sets is a fun little part of the game, and it helps to have a pack rat mentality when you first start. You can take items back to the surface for safekeeping once you've cleared a level, but if you die at any point, everything you've collected will get confiscated by the guards. You can get these back, but it'll be a bit of a pain at times, so it's best to do some risk analysis to figure out when it's time to cash out. Doing so does reset each level you've completed, but that's not a huge issue, at least in the default settings, because once you reach a level, you have the option to jump there from the main menu, and you won't have to redo anything you don't want to. Now I know somebody's going to do the thing where they're like,
But you said this game wasn't like all the other hyphen likes, but you said...
And it's not. It's really not like your typical roguelite, Soulsborne, Honk Shin Impact MOBAvania. Most games that carry that flag tend to make it all that they're about. They want you to get addicted to this feeling of going back through and collecting items and maybe dying, and then going back through and collecting items and dying again. And you can do that in this game, but it doesn't encourage you to. Most tend to have an effect like you'll find more taser bolts, and that's not necessarily a thing that will make or break a playthrough for a skilled player. And the barrier for entry is fairly low. You can get the hang of it pretty quickly if you just try. What I think you get the most out of from these items is it teaches you a little bit more about the mechanics of something you'll find or do along the way. An item that gets you a lot more tear modules will teach you how to use tear modules if that's all you have in your inventory. A pair of boots that give you a stronger heavy kick will obviously encourage you to use that heavy kick at every opportunity. In that way, the crawl is more of a supplement to the other two aspects of the game. And I get the sense that that's intentional. They don't lay it on too thick with as many items as you can possibly dream of out there in the world. It's really only a couple of sets. And while some of them are satisfying to use and really good at what they do, I never felt like I found anything that I needed more than just A, B, X, and Y buttons on my controller. Add to this the fact that you can literally jump back to any place where you died before from the main menu, and that you don't really permanently lose anything, you can just go back and get it from the contraband station, means to me that this isn't really any kind of rogue anything. It's just a fun little feature that they added to the game to help people who are used to that kind of experience find something familiar here. All three of these aspects of the game, the stealth, combat, and progression, come together in a way that always feels fluid and engaging. And there's always enough overlap between what you can do when you're sneaking around and the abilities you have in a fight that it doesn't ever feel like you're limited to one or the other as a solution to your current problem. I do wonder how much of the seamless feel happened naturally in the course of Team Crucible developing this game, but I have to assume that there was a painstaking level of attention to detail as they were building these systems up. It is a very sleek and comprehensive experience. Alright, I've covered a lot of technical territory at this point. I think it's time to move on. So full disclosure, this next part of the video gives a ton of story spoilers. If you're interested in experiencing the world of raw metal for yourself, now's the time to go grab it or wishlist it. I've covered pretty much everything else at length I can at this point. And I have to say, I do recommend not spoiling this for yourself. The narrative is interesting, and while the plot doesn't do a ton of heavy lifting compared to mechanics and style, enough of it exists in order to make it an enjoyable experience. But not everything is for everyone, so I get it if stealth or parrying or beat-em-ups just aren't your thing, or if you're not planning on buying it no matter what, or if you're just one of those people who needs to fall asleep to long-form video content and want someone to yammer about nothing, then this next part of the video will tell you everything you're missing out on from the world of raw metal. As the game progresses and you make your way deeper and deeper into the facility, you'll occasionally encounter the odd terminal that will drop a few bits of lore. The first ones you find will talk a lot about what our main character presumably already knows. First, the exoplanet of Charybdis is rich in a material known as grimite. Wait, no, it's grimite. Oh god, not grimite, damn you, no! The rerunning bits is too many. It's time for me to cut back. Grimite is your in-game currency, what you use to repair and upgrade your equipment, and what you find in pretty much every container you stumble across here. This place is flush with it. It's everywhere. And that's the reason why Orpheus Technologies, the corporation whose party you're crashing, has set up shop on this planet to begin with. It's not just the name of the game, it's also its plot. Everything is about the raw metal.
Edith, I sent over yesterday's geoanalysis. The grimite ore is exceptionally pure here. No wonder Orpheus wanted to expand. As if the strongest metal known to man couldn't get any stronger, here we are.
As you continue down level by level, you learn that Orpheus has been investing more into security for this location for quite some time.
Hey Z, I've attached a new protocol for the cameras they want us to implement ASAP. Security's obviously been tightening lately, but apparently it's not enough. What are we even guarding down here? It can't just be the grimite, right?
When you finally make it to the lowest level of Layer 1, you're met with the first boss of the game.
I don't know what you're looking for down here, but you're not gonna like what you find.
Yeah, I know.
You should have stayed home, kid.
Trevor Grimsdottir, the head of security for Charybdis 6. Grimsdottir is a kind of boogeyman even among those in his own ranks. His reputation as an intimidating force literally precedes him.
Lucas, please make sure you get the security report in by 0400 this time. I don't want Grimsdottir breathing down my neck again. He's scary.
The Trevor you meet in person seems at first to align with these rumors. He gives you a warning. There's nothing for you here. The scavengers shouldn't waste their time or their life in Charybdis 6. He tells you to save yourself and turn back before you get hurt. That obviously wouldn't be any fun, so the scavenger doubles down. But in spite of the confidence our little buddy here has in facing this foe, it usually doesn't work out too well the first time. And if you get knocked out, you're politely thrown out of the base to do it again. Making your way back to him and getting to his second phase affords you a little more dialogue, with some interesting implications.
You're back. How many times are we gonna have to do this, kid?
As many as it takes.
That's the spirit. There may be hope after all. All right then. I won't hold back. Show me what you got, kid!
Grimsdottir wants you to beat him. He wants you to prove that you can make it into the depths of this facility and emerge unscathed. It's unclear why, but your own resolve seems to give him some too.
You only got one shot at this, kid.
Eventually, the scavenger emerges from the encounter victoriously, and as we strike Grimm's daughter down, we hear him utter something that implies he's doing this more for our protection than for Orpheus's.
There are worse things down here.
And stay down.
Little footnote here, I thought this guy had a cool name and character design, so I looked it up, and I think this might be a Splinter Cell reference. I'm not entirely sure, but it's cool either way. In the second layer, the dry and hollow mines of Charybdis 6 begin to turn damp and dark. Pools of foamy water form in the shadows, as do clumps of bright orange organic material. Finding the second set of terminals in this layer grants you some critical knowledge about this substance. This complex, Charybdis 6, is not just a mine. It's also a laboratory, and one of the experiments being done here involves turning the organic material you pass by, known as mitric, into incredibly efficient sources of electricity. Living generators.
What's up, Thomas? Supervisor's got me working analysis today. God, I hate cutting these things open. Don't get me wrong, I'm not squeamish. I'm just worried about blowing up or something. I don't know about you, but that canary in a coal mine feeling has been getting a little too literal lately.
When we make it to the second boss of the game, we get a glimpse of what this can look like at its strongest and most fearsome. It's in the hands of a fighter known as Aaron Archer.
Pretty cool, right? They tell me this thing can power a fleet's worth of tear drives. And all that energy is pulsing through me.
Let's see if it's enough.
Much like Grimm's daughter, we hear about Archer before we meet him, and he has a reputation for being a bit over the top in his character.
Good God, Andrea, please let me know when you're going on break. Archer is seriously starting to get on my nerves, and if I don't vet about it, I'm gonna weld this filter shut. Okay, first question. What was Orpheus thinking? Handing our delicate prototype to that tool?
We see that in his fighting style as well. Dashing, long-range blasts, erratic movements, and a whole lot of shit-talking make him a pain to fight. These little distractions can come together in a way that makes his Phase 1 combat seem unpredictable and difficult to get a read on, especially if you fail to track his leading movements. Part of what gives him all of these advantages and allows him to fight so aggressively is the mitric cell I mentioned earlier. It's attached to his lower back, powering his suit and staff. But that's not all. Once we crack him and enter into a second phase, the fight becomes a little more intense. He taps into a second overgrown mitric cell in the center of his arena.
If that mitric cell decides to go critical because he pushed it too far, don't expect me to go running for that kill switch.
Now this is power!
In both phases, he will often attack with reckless abandon, sending the mitric cell into overload mode and electrocuting himself before he has the chance to attack. Taking advantage of this can end the fight for him much quicker than either of you anticipated. Torn apart by our skill and his own hubris, Archer is easily bested in combat.
You went too far.
We're able to grab his keycard and move on to the final area of the game. The third layer of Charybdis 6 loses its industrial facade and instead takes on the more honest appearance of a laboratory. And here we stumble upon the worst of the wide array of horrors that Orpheus Technologies has been developing into weapons of war. Bullets that use tear technology to teleport inside their targets once they reach peak velocity.
Helen, just finished this week's tear weapon test. As expected, the modifications we made now more consistently tear rounds closer to the expected MOA of the platform. I should reiterate that this is extremely unstable technology we're playing with. Uncle Sam isn't going to want to buy a gun that teleports bullets into their own soldiers. On the plus side, the complete negation of armor is proving as effective as it sounds. I've already sent in a request for low-caliber fragmenting ammunition, since, as of now, penetration is a non-factor. Whether it's Kevlar or a solid brick wall, doesn't matter. The bullet's already in them.
It becomes clear that Grimite and these other technologies are going to be used to cause death and mass destruction, and with so much of it available on Charybdis, blood has never been cheaper. If we think back to Grimm's daughter, his anger and frustration starts to make more sense now. It becomes clear why he was so ashamed of the work being done within Catabase 6, and why he was so willing to root for you in spite of his own commitment to keeping anyone from venturing too deep into this place. As a result, what started as a simple scavenging mission becomes a moral imperative for your character. You're now on a mission to make it to the bottom of this facility and shut the whole operation down before chaos is unleashed. And while this might seem like a new revelation to us, the truth is that the scavenger has probably known this for longer than we have, because when we stumble across a terminal in the lowest reaches of the base, we learn more that sheds light on our motivations.
Hey Nate, I looked through the personal archives like you suggested, and I noticed something weird. There's a discrepancy in the number of guards stationed at Catabase 6. We're one short. According to the database, there's one person who toured with us to Charybdis and doesn't appear on the directory. Weirdest thing, though, is that it looks like the file's been completely wiped and redacted. Did they just up and quit? How do they plan on getting back to Earth?
We are the missing guard, and if we start to listen closely to our adversaries as we encounter them, it becomes clear that our identity is no longer a total mystery to them either. When we finally clear the laboratory, we find the villain of our story anticipating our arrival, the head of Orpheus Technologies.
You made it. Have a seat. I know how you feel. I felt the same way once. But I've come to learn the nature of humanity. It's kill or be killed.
Enough with your excuses. I'm shutting this down.
I'm afraid I can't allow that. I've risked far too much to get here.
I gotta say, the first two bosses were tough, but this one can feel impossible to the uninitiated. It took about 30 minutes in the training mode for me to even figure out how to penetrate this enemy's defenses and break through her flurry of attacks. Not only does she hit hard and fast, but each hit that connects also restores some of her health. It is a fight that shows no mercy in a game that shows no mercy. So I came up against the wall, and to make my way over it, the only recourse I had was to get good. So I did. I went back, and I getted real good. I learned the parry timing, and more importantly, I learned to And even after you perfect both of those, the best tool you have to fight back against Orpheus is that max HP damage mechanic I mentioned earlier. Because she heals with each light attack that connects, your best means of winning the fight is to avoid taking heavy hits and chip away at her total health. Surviving earns you a little more story. During this fight, she admits that she knows who you are.
I won't let you. Do you think this will fix what you've done? What we've all done?
At some point after they found out about the weapons being developed, the scavenger decided they could no longer be complicit, and so they left everything behind, even their only ticket back to Earth, to stop it all. Elizabeth Orpheus addresses the scavenger in fairly plain terms, that try as they might, they'll never be able to undo the damage that has already happened.
Don't you remember why you came here? You're no different from the rest of us!
Still, her words don't shake us, and by completing the fight and forcing Orpheus to concede to our terms, and cease operations, the mission is done. All of your hard work has resulted in a heroic end, and untold millions of lives are saved. Charybdis 6 is shut down for good voluntarily. The game concludes with the warm glow of heroism. Except that's not what actually happens.
What do you want, money? That's why you came to this wretched planet, isn't it?
Money won't cut it anymore. You know why I'm here.
You don't understand. I can't shut this facility down.
Bullshit.
No. This isn't the bottom of Charybdis 6. It goes deeper. Wait, stop! Where are you going?
Deeper.
Pushing forward, we take our first steps into where it seems few in the organization, save Elizabeth herself, have gone. An elevator ride leads us to a deep, dark tunnel, riddled with matrix cells. And as we're led into a cavern at its terminus, we're met with an uncanny foe. It's something like a clone of one of the many guards we fought, a matrix cell molded into the form of flesh and metal, speaking in chittering semi-human tongues. As you strike it down, another appears, and another. And another. They seem to multiply, filling the chamber until you're outnumbered and are forced to survive the relentless onslaught of an all-consuming, all-becoming hive mind. What we found is the center of a colony, an unnatural cluster of alien life that seeks to emulate and perhaps replace humanity. If you manage to defeat them all, the Earth begins to quake with the rage of this many-headed foe. You need to run. You're not sure where, but back seems to be the only way forward, so you sprint through the crumbling tunnel to the elevator platform. And though you don't know it, every step brings you closer to a familiar foe, one that has been looming in the background, watching, waiting the whole game. It's one that you've never seen, but that you may very well recognize. It's you.
What the hell? What the hell? What is this? What is this?
Or it's something trying to be you. It is a something that is very good at trying to be you. It's not just an uncanny foe, it's a reflection. A new you. The Mitra colony has learned from you somehow at some point.
You went too far.
How could I lose to a rat like you?
You went too far.
It has discovered how you fight.
It's kill or be killed.
Enough with your excuses. I'm shutting this down.
And turns every tool you've used against others back against you.
I expected more from you.
It will stun you, charge at you, throw rapid volleys of punches and heavy hits when you least expect it. And when you let your guard down, it takes everything from you. Your progress is pushed back to before the fight with Orpheus. You'll have to repeat her encounter and everything that comes after it again. And the Abyssal Scavenger is not available as a boss to learn from in the training mode. So, if you want to master the fight against yourself, you'll need to master the fight against everyone else, too. So you do it. Again.
Here you are again. Are you ready to talk now? There are much more productive ways to settle this. Fists are far from the best method of communication. Wouldn't you agree?
I happen to think they carry a message pretty clearly.
You defeat her, and you defeat them. And once again, you face you. And if you manage to strike yourself down once, that's when the real fight begins. Phase 2. You may remember what I said earlier about how the darkness is always your friend in raw metal. In this case, your friend has turned against you in a moment of uncertainty. Total darkness takes over the stage, and the Abyssal Scavenger slips into it quickly, just as you would. Your only hope of catching it is to track it through flashes of light, hoping to land a sweeping hit before it lands one on you. Even then, victory is not a guarantee. Once you found him, you have to keep him close and on the defensive, or else he'll slip back into the shadows. The stakes are at their highest in this fight. No other battle in the game threatens your safe state like this one. No other one pits your greatest strengths against your own greatest weaknesses. But that's because this is the true final boss of the game. The encounter you've been training for the entire time without even knowing it. When the Abyssal Scavenger has been defeated, and the game reaches its conclusion, its true conclusion, we get a cutscene. We walk past all of the foes we've encountered on the way, big and small, all forced to acknowledge that we have in fact bested them. And we find Elizabeth, crumpled to the earth among them, silently recounting every success and failure to figure out where everything went wrong.
Get better security.
At the end of it all, we're left with a few questions. First, the relationship between Mitric and humanity is unclear. At first, it seemed to be just another resource for Orpheus Tech to monopolize upon. Mitric would power their tear drives, which would be installed into their weapons, and these would be made of Grimite. The end result being nearly unlimited power with unlimited directionality, used to fire guns and bullets made from a nigh unbreakable material. All made possible by little, unassuming orange globs of goo. But what we find in the depths of the mine gives the impression that the relationship is not so one-sided. Instead, we're presented with the possibility that Mitric has been controlling, or perhaps even replacing, the people in Catabase 6. That Elizabeth herself is acting at the behest of the unfamiliar lifeform below, or attempting to bargain with it without truly understanding the terms of their relationship. How much do the others know about what's happening in the depths of this place? Grimsdottir himself seems to know more than he wants to, and Archer appears to bask in the power that Mitric affords him. But it's unlikely either truly understand the exact nature of the horrors which lurk miles below the surface. Why and how did the Abyss seek to emulate the Scavenger, and how much of what we encountered leading up to this final fight was known to them before they descended? And one final question looms above them all. What does the future of Orpheus and the Scavenger look like beyond the events of the game? And the answer to that question is... and that is Mitric language for we won't know until they make a sequel, which they should. They'd better make a sequel to this. But in all seriousness, this game has a lot to offer to anyone willing to watch and listen, and thank you for watching and listening to my recounting of the story. I think it's worth savoring every minute of if storylines and thoughtful world building are important to you, and I encourage you to still go back and revisit the story for yourself if you feel like it, because you may catch something I didn't. There may be a detail or a little nugget of information that you find important that I might have missed. And that is all I'll say about the story. Now, I've talked about a lot with this game. The stealth is fun. The combat is killer. The story is so much richer, deeper, and better than you might expect at first glance. But this game manages to accomplish something that I have seen very few games in the same category manage to do to the same degree. It is consistently, purposefully hilarious.
You can't touch me. That's not gonna work.
No interruptions this time. God damn it.
You're finished.
It's just so good. The delivery is always so real, and the timing is just on point every time. The way the team pours so much life and personality into this world through characters who don't even have faces is just awesome. Also, I don't know what it is. It's not a crude or gory game outside of the occasional expletive, but something about it really reminds me of like the absurdity and gloves-off humor of a No More Heroes or any other Suda 51 title. I think it might just be that it doesn't take itself too seriously. Instead, it just kind of basks in the fun of everything, even in the face of darker implications. It is a game that wants to be fun, it wants you to have fun, it wants to just make fun happen, and I like that. And one last little detail I just want to note is that in certain points in the game, the soundtrack will transform into what I can only describe as Saturday morning cartoon rock, and it's just amazing. It is more icing on the cake that this game already is. It fits so well tonally, and it just makes the experience so fun and silly and just wonderful all around. Final thoughts? What? Why did I put this section in? You're still here? What the hell else can I say about this game? I've said more than enough already, and we all know it. Alright, well, here's something else, just because. Before beating New Game Plus, only 0.7% of the player base earned the achievement for doing so. After I did it, it read 0.9%. Now, I went to public school probably like the rest of you, so excuse my quick maths, but I doubt anybody else did it in the exact span of time it took me to do it, which would mean that I, a single player, made up a whopping 0.2% of the player base for this game. That's like 1 out of 500 people, or something. And if that's true, and I'm not just being bad with numbers, you're telling me only 500 people played this sick-ass video game in 2024? Or is Steam fudging the numbers? Because I don't know if I've ever played a game this good with so few players. That's absolutely ridiculous. Go play this game. I have shamelessly and selfishly shilled this relatively obscure indie game for an hour because I want a sequel, and have done all I can do. It's up to you to figure out whether you like it or not, and the only way you can do that is if you go play it. But I do want to return one last time to the whole reason why I made this video. This game has mastered the art of the genre switch-up, so much so that I think the way it got me into a flow state or explored certain ideas even inspired me to get back into adjacent genres that I hadn't touched for a while. For instance, I'm not really a fighting game guy. I might pick up Mortal Kombat on sale a couple years after release, but the way this game's combat keeps you moving really reminds me of how I'd get into the zone when I invested any time into those games. Learning how to do a really long combo, or managing to pull off a flawless victory somehow. So it might not surprise you to learn that while I was finishing this game and the Steam Winter Sale was going on, I was back in Outworld cooking up combos with Sector for the first time in MK1. Raw Metal was the spark that reignited the little interest I had in fighting games, and who knows, maybe I'll explore more in the future, but I definitely wouldn't explore them at all if this game hadn't opened my mind to it. And since I invoked Kojima way earlier, Death Stranding is another one of those titles that seems to dance effortlessly between genres. Kojima and his teams have always been masters at that, and DS is no exception, switching between movie and open world adventure, and beat 'em up and stealth action. And horror question mark? I don't know. It's one I never finished just because I got distracted by louder, shinier games. But my experiences with Raw Metal and another recent indie find of Love and Eternity really pull on threads that make me want to revisit it. I think when you find a game that covers so many bases so well and really resonates with you for some other reason, it can give you a broader appreciation for other titles that you might not have had before. Raw Metal has definitely been that game for me. I'm sure there are a lot of other titles out there that cross boundaries or switch up the gameplay in ways that feel seamless and innovative, but this one really takes the cake for me. It's the one that's been my favorite in 2024, and one I've been super excited to make my first individual in-depth video about on this channel. So here's the part where I turn it over to you, metalheads. What do you think of this game? Have you played it? Did you like it, hate it, feel indifferent about it? Have you never seen it, think it looks sick or lame? And the most important question of the day, what games have you found that have mastered the art of the genre switch-up? Let me know, and maybe I'll try those out too. Hey, thanks for watching. A lot of you guys are following me now. That's cool. I made this channel for like 5 people, 3 of whom I know in real life. So for the other several hundred of you watching every video with great interest, just know that YouTube by design is a whole ass one-way wall of separation between you and me. Just so you know, I don't monetize this, I don't want to review your game as a favor, and I'm not currently looking for sponsors. Y'all pack your things up, take it on over to the next YouTuber. Go on, get. I do this because it gives me an excuse to edit videos, play games, and talk about things I like with people who like similar things. I will continue to do it until I get bored of it. I have been unplugged the past couple of weeks as I work on this and just live life, but if you'd like to actually interact with me, then pop on over to Blue Sky, where I and a lot of other cool people are more active. And if you're connecting or already connected with me over there, don't be afraid to drop a comment if you ever catch one of my posts. I'm not some psychopath wannabe influencer up on an ivory tower. I'm just a dude who yammers about media. That's all I aspire to be. That's all for now. I'll catch you guys in the next one. No, seriously, it's a good game, I swear. It's not just because it has the word metal in the title.